Monday in Burns and Gambo on Arizona Sports.
Let's go!
Presented by Sanderson Ford. The best play is at Sanderson Ford.
Let's go!
All right, we're a little off clock today, as it were. So with all apologies to Eric, we will skip the Sports Center update here because we just carried a half hour of Michael Bidwill speaking from the Cardinals headquarters down in Tempe on the firing of Cliff Kingsbury, the resignation of Steve Keim. We'll kind of get things back in order, Twitter poll question, things like that. But we just went a whole half hour listening to Michael talk about the openings. And Gambo, your first reaction, what did you hear that stuck with you the most, would you say?
Very simple to me, that eating those contracts was not going to have an impact on hiring the best coach and general manager. Now, he didn't say, the most expensive guy's the best guy, but he said it's not going to have an impact. Look, they're eating $50 million, okay? Michael Bidwill's eating $50 million. What I'm hearing is Cliff makes about $7.5 a year, Steve makes about $5 a year. Okay, so now I don't know if now Cliff is fully guaranteed.
Steve is the interesting one on that, right?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, is there cause? He resigned, so he did resign. So does that mean that he's resigning from getting paid? Maybe he doesn't get paid. If that's the case, then you're just eating the $30 million on Cliff. I don't know if Steve's contract is fully guaranteed. I don't know if there's cause. I don't know if he just resigned and just said, okay, no more, I'm good. I don't know that. What I do know is that Cliff's money, 4 years, is fully guaranteed, and that's about $7.5 million a year.
Yeah, that is a big amount of money to have to eat on something like that.
I think that's the price of doing business.
Of course. No, that's
right.
We keep bringing this up, but there was a story that you brought up a couple of weeks ago that basically if you canvass all 32 teams in the National Football League, right now the running tally for how much money you're spending to make general managers and coaches go away is about $800 million.
Yeah, and it's probably like 900 now after the fire.
Right. Everything that went down today, right? Although it hasn't been as bad a Black Friday, quite frankly, as some people were expecting. Nothing's happened in New Orleans. Nothing's happened in Washington. Nothing's happened in Indianapolis yet with Jeff Saturday, right? I mean, there hasn't been, I think the big shakeup we're waiting for is what happens with the Rams and McVay. Does anything happen with Staley if they go one and done? Dallas, boy,
if they go one and done.
Terrible what happened with them yesterday and how they played.
Well, let me ask you the same question then. Because the biggest takeaway for me was it doesn't seem like Michael is afraid to spend money to get the right people in place. What was your biggest takeaway?
Yes, on the question about the outside voice. We want to be open-minded. We're not just going to be looking at internal candidates. That, to me, is that lip service? Is that saying what people want to hear? Because Michael alluded to this. Early in the press conference, he alluded to this idea that he's always kind of had Steve by his side during these coaching searches, right?
Right.
He doesn't anymore. This makes it a very new experience to him in regards to that trusted voice that he has next to him, kind of guiding him through this process. And I think that there is a real belief among the fan base, and not that this is why you should do it. I think there's a real belief among the fan base that this organization needs to go outside. Needs to go outside for everything. They need to bring in a new GM. They need to bring in a new coach.
Just a new culture. Somebody that can create a new culture. Michael mentioned culture. He also mentioned regression, which is the biggest word in Phoenix sports over the last year is regressed. Everybody's regressed. Kyler's regressed. The team's regressed. The Suns have regressed.
I mean, honestly.
Have I regressed?
As a talk show host over the last 6 months, you've really regressed, Gambo.
Regressed. He mentioned regressed. I'm like, let me write that down. It regressed. But I think that everybody is going to want, you want to establish a new culture, you got to bring new people in, okay? You got to bring new people in. I do. I mean, if you come back with Quinton or A-Dub and Vance Joseph, I'm not saying it's the same old. Those guys will make minor changes. But if you truly want a culture change, like a true culture change, you're going to want to reach out and bring in new people that have no ties to the organization at all.
That was the most important part of what was said to me, all right? Because Sean Payton's a wonderful dream, and if it happens, that's great. But I would caution Cardinals fans not to fixate just on Sean Payton and not to think that this is going to be a failure if they don't get Sean Payton, because it's going to be hard to get him. It's going to be expensive. It's going to cost you draft picks. I don't know what level of compensation the Saints are going to require, but it's not going to be easy to get him.
Well, I thought that should have been a question at the press conference today. would you be willing to give up draft pick compensation to hire a coach? You didn't even have to say Sean Payton's name, but then Michael could have answered that,
He didn't. I kind of, that's a really good point. I kind of felt like that was part of the question. Are you willing to pay for the biggest name on the market? And here's what he said to that.
Well, what I'm willing to do financially is get the best coach and the best GM. I don't know the biggest name correlates to the best coach. So I guess what I would say is I definitely want to make sure that we get the best coach and the best general manager for this team and get this team turned around as fast as we can.
But to your point specifically, I think you're right. A question would have been appropriate. What level of draft compensation are you willing to consider to get your future head coach?
Are you willing to consider draft pick compensation?
Right.
Are you even willing to consider that?
Sure. You've got the third pick in the draft. You've got great picks.
Which I'm not giving up for Sean Payton. I'm not giving that up for Sean Payton. There's no way I'm doing that.
And I don't think you're alone on that one, and I wouldn't either. It's what's too bad about it is that if you waited a month or two, you could probably turn the third pick into multiple first-round picks if you wanted to, and then you might have the ammunition to go get Sean Payton, but it's not going to work that way. You're going to have to hire Sean Payton first before you make that trade. Mm-hmm. I almost think you need to make that trade to be able to hire Sean Payton so you have multiple first-round picks at your disposal to use. What else stood out to you?
He did say that the preference is to hire a GM first, but if they had to hire a coach, then he would hire a coach. I thought that was pretty interesting as well, that he did say that what we want to do is we want to hire the GM first and then the coach, but we're not afraid of hiring the right coach if that guy comes first.
He also would not, and I think if I remember right, and I'm sure somebody from the organization will tell me if I'm wrong on this, he didn't want to give any details of the candidates they're talking to, wouldn't disclose it. And I believe that's somewhat of a departure from the past, where you and I have been through
Andy Reid,
right? Where they were literally naming names,
Andy
right?
Reid.
And they would say, hey, we had this guy in today. We had that guy in yesterday. We're having this guy in next week, right? Yeah, the Andy Reid story. They fire Ken Wisenhunt, and Michael, in a similar sounding press conference, announces that day, we've reached out to Andy Reid. And it was a very transparent search. The only transparency on this one was the acknowledgement of speaking to Quentin Harris, the acknowledgement of speaking to Adrian Wilson, and then the admission that they've spoken to somebody outside the organization. But beyond that, Michael made it pretty clear he didn't really want to name names in terms of what they would be looking for. I tell you,
he said it's going to be different than the past, and that'll be different. They'll try to keep everything in-house and not let people know about it. Obviously, agents will let everybody know, because agents want, if you're an agent of an assistant GM, you're going to want to make it known that people are looking at your guy. So you're going to get it out there. You're going to call Adam Schefter, and you're going to say, my guy's going to have an interview, because you're going to want that name out there, because then that name becomes hot, and you're going to think, because other people may look at him. So agents' responsibilities, they need to make sure that their guys' names get out there.
Yeah, and I don't know if Michael is doing a breakdown with the writers now that this is done. I'm looking at the Twitter accounts of Kent Summers and Darren Urban, and maybe this is just semantics, or maybe he said this during the press conference and I missed it. But Michael said that Steve Keim is no longer with the organization. The announcement earlier was that he had left the general manager's position, maybe leaving some ambiguity out there as to whether he was still a part of it. Yeah, he is no longer with the organization. He's not there anymore. The other thing that I think stood out to me was Kyler. Yes, I'll be talking with him later today. Yes, we exchanged text messages. Yes, we'd like him to rehab here, be closer to the organization, right? That sort of the Kyler element to all of this. How much say is probably the wrong word, but how much influence is Kyler going to have in this decision? How much input do you search?
Do you consider him a leader? Because he said he spoke to leaders of the team. Do you consider Kyler a leader of the team?
He
has to be.
He wears a captaincy, doesn't he?
So talked about.
You hope they're not giving those out for nothing, right?
Yeah, want to get the most out of the players. They spoke to the leaders about the culture. I mean, listen, the first guy you go to is Buddha.
Yes.
You go to Buddha and you say, hey.
Go ahead, finish your thought. I'm sorry.
What do we need to do? You want to win more than anybody in this. There's nobody in the team that wants to win more than Buddha does. What would you do to change this? So, I mean, I think you reach out to a couple of the guys you trust the most and you feel are leaders of the organization. You go to them.
Second guy I go to, he's not with the organization anymore. I go to J.J. Watt. Damn right. Who said yesterday during his farewell press conference that he had some thoughts on the organization. He didn't think that was the proper venue to share his thoughts about the organization and kind of what they need to do. That is absolutely a call I'm making if I'm Michael, if I haven't already. Hey, JJ, you're a first ballot guy. You've been here for 2 years. You got a good long look at how our organization works. What do you think? What do we need to do better? Where can we improve? Oh, absolutely. I'm speaking to him.
And Michael talked about, man, we were 13 months ago. We were like, what did he say? We were 12-2 13 months ago.
Yep.
Well, I mean, so much has changed in those 13 months, though.
And I tell you, if there's one quote that probably will be the headline in tomorrow's paper or on today's website, quote, I don't know if we're as broken as people think, close quote. He said that, and I just immediately, wrote it down, underlined it, point an arrow to it.
What are you seeing now? Because we think you're pretty broken.
You look pretty broken.
You can't win home games. You've had to fire 2 coaches for off-field conduct.
Mm-hmm.
Your coach your GM had to take a leave of absence for a month, and he resigned. Your coach just got fired. Have to get there's a lot that's broken about this. That's why I think, and Michael talked about teams that turned it around turn around quickly. I don't think it's a quick turnaround.
No,
I don't. I mean, there are some that can do it. I don't think this is a quick turnaround.
No, I don't believe so either. The countdown to Super Bowl 57 has begun, and Bud Light, FanDuel, and Arizona Sports want you to be there in person. Yes, I said in person. Text the word SUPER to 620-620 to register, and then listen for your name starting February 6th. And you can score a pair of tickets to the Super Bowl. Plus, you'll win tickets to the following events: the FanDuel Party, the Bud Light Music Fest, and the Super Bowl Experience. So again, text the word SUPER to 620-620. It's all access, and it's presented by Bud Light and FanDuel. So what's next for the Cardinals organization? Names that they've spoken to? We'll share them with you next on the Burns Gambo Show.
Hi, this is Marcus Golden.
This is J.J. Watt.
Hi, this is Max Williams of the Arizona Cardinals.
Big Red Monday continues with Burns and Gambo.
Arizona Sports All Access, presented by Bud Light and FanDuel. The countdown to Super Bowl 57 has begun. And Arizona Sports wants you to access all the in-demand events happening right here in the Valley. Enter now for your chance to win. 2 VIP tickets to the FanDuel Party, 2 tickets to the Bud Light Music Fest, 2 tickets to the Super Bowl Experience, and 2 tickets to Super Bowl 57. Text SUPER to 620-620 and enter now. Text SUPER to 620-620. Message and data rates may apply.
If this is the year you're going to change out and do some remodeling on your home, change out the windows and the doors, you've got to know about RNK Building Supplies. RNK's showroom is still the largest in the Valley, and they've recently installed new displays of the most popular windows and doors on the market. You can find popular black-on-black frame styles like the Milgard Trinsic Vinyl Series, featuring a narrow modern frame and expansive view. RNK proudly sells brands from top manufacturers like Milgard, whose quality and warranties have made them an industry leader for decades. At RNK, every installed job is measured by their installation manager. They arrive with a tape measure, not a briefcase, to accurately survey the job. And RNK's experienced sales can provide the most options to fit any project scope, style, even budget. Because they carry all the major brands, they can work with you on your budget. Visit rnk.com for inspiration or to request a quote. That's rnk.com, reliability and knowledge.
On Monday, February 6th, football's biggest week kicks off with Super Bowl opening night, presented by Fast Twitch. Live from the Footprint Center in downtown Phoenix. Be there in person for live entertainment and exclusive interviews from the stars of Super Bowl 57 in the AFC and NFC championship teams' only public appearance before the big game. Tickets are just $20 with no hidden fees. Visit superbowl.com/opening night to purchase your tickets today.
Oh, time to celebrate the wins in Las Vegas. Hey, Ron Wolfley here from our brothers over at Circa Resort and Casino, the sports viewing mecca in Las Vegas right now. You've probably heard me tell you about Stadium Swim. Yeah, incredible. I've seen it with my own eyes. 3 levels, 6 pools, 143-foot wide by 40-foot high definition television screen. Visit CircaLasVegas.com for more details and make your reservations. That's CircaLasVegas.com.
Sanderson Charity supports our troops and is proud to partner with Fighter Country Foundation, who support the men, women, and families of Luke Air Force Base, the primary training site of the next generation F-35-2 Lightning fighter jets. Please help Sanderson Charities support Fighter Country Foundation's mission to build a new training facility for the Honor Guard as we auction off the highly sought-after and Motor Trend Truck of the Year, the 2023 Ford F-150 Lightning. The all-electric Lightning truck from Sanderson Ford will go to the highest bidder at the Barrett-Jackson Auto Auction. All proceeds will be donated to Fighter Country Foundation, courtesy of the Barrett-Jackson Auto Auction and Sanderson Charities. Help us serve those who serve us.
Are you ready to propose to the love of your life? Just as you can imagine all the possibilities for your future, at Shane Company, we can help you imagine all the possibilities for the engagement ring. With the largest selection of unique ring settings in every price range and great financing options, it'll be easy to create the perfect ring. We have solitaire styles, diamond halo rings, designs inspired by nature, and more. For the center stone, we offer natural diamonds and lab-grown diamonds, as well as natural gemstones, including rubies, sapphires, peach morganite, aquamarine, and amethyst. You can also choose a perfectly preset ring. It's proposal ready. At Shane Company, every center stone has been hand-selected by our experts to ensure it meets our high standards for quality and beauty. Unlike other jewelers, our warranty is free, for life, and even covers your center stone. Visit the store or order online. Find the perfect ring for the one you can't let go.
Now you have a friend in the jewelry business. Shane Company and ShaneCo.com.
The Burns and Gambo Need to Know Twitter poll, presented by Sanderson Ford.
All right, we have Eric Ruby here with us, who's also the co-host of our Cards Corner podcast, which is available for downloads. You can hear more things Cardinals, all things Cardinals. If you want more Cardinals content, he and Tyler Drake drop that every single week. So
might do an emergency episode today. Might be putting one out there later tonight. We did
Definitely
one last night.
Yeah.
Doing one tonight, too. Big
Blast
day.
it out there. Big day. Michael
Lots
Bidwill,
of news.
with his press conference, has just wrapped up. You heard it live here. We'll be reacting to it and talking about kind of what's next all day long. I imagine we'll also sprinkle in a little playoff talk. It was a pretty monumental day yesterday in the NFL with everything that broke and the way things went down. But for now, let's focus on the future of the Cardinals. What's our poll question today?
The Cardinals season is over, and they now have two key positions that they need to fill this offseason. This is not a question of which will be filled first. This is a question of which is most important, head coach or general manager.
GM. GM's the most important.
I would wholeheartedly agree. I think general manager is most important.
Got to have the players. Got to have the right players.
Got to have the groceries. Got to.
This one, rolling with you guys, 57.7% going with GM as well. That means 42.3% think the head coach is more important than the GM.
I mean, you make an argument for the head coach because the head coach ultimately is the one who's going to extract the most out of Kyler Murray. I mean, that's of obvious, crucial importance over the next 2 years.
Yeah, let the GM hire the coach that's going to get the most out of Kyler as part of the process.
But the GM is going to hire the coach, and the GM is going to populate the roster with the players who are also going to get the most out of it. Yeah, I think that a new voice at general manager is something that we're all anxious to see what that looks like and how that manifests itself and how that, in terms of roster and things like that, how that looks. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate that. And again, for more Cardinals content, go look for his Cardinals Corner podcast. He and Tyler Drake do a tremendous job putting that together and might even have an emergency session tonight. Michael Bidwill earlier today, you better believe there's a sense of urgency right now.
Oh, yes. There's an incredible sense of urgency. And believe me, I've been... like I said, on the phone and exchanging texts and messages and phone calls and getting the input of a lot of folks and trying to get a 360-degree view of a number of candidates. And we're also not done looking at it. There is no fixed list at this point. I'm trying to throw the net, cast the net as far and wide as I can.
He Indicated today he's already interviewed 2 internal candidates for general manager. They are, of course, Quentin Harrison, Adrian Wilson, who have been acting as co-GMs for the last few weeks since Steve has been on his medical leave. 1 external candidate for general manager. He did not reveal the name of that person, so we don't know who that is. He later clarified, in case he misspoke, and I don't believe that he did, that they would like to interview, and they could interview an internal candidate for coach. That is likely Vance Joseph, but they have not yet up until this point. So we wanted to clarify and make sure he didn't misspoke. Now, you mentioned this earlier, and you're so spot on about this. If Michael's not going to give us the names, the agents of these people are very much going to want their names out there.
Very much.
Right? Very much going to want to know that their clients are hot commodities, and you better schedule an interview with them. So that being said, the 3 reported names so far that the Cardinals at least have interest in or interviews requests in for are Ian Cunningham. He's the assistant general manager of the Chicago Bears. Ran Carthon, who's the director of player personnel for the San Francisco 49ers. And Adam Peters, the assistant general manager for the San Francisco 49ers as well. I read up a little on Ian Cunningham. He attended that NFL's accelerator program that Michael was referring to, the one in which minority candidates it was sort of an open forum where you could meet them, get to know them, to accelerate their advancement through the ranks of the National Football League. And Ian Cunningham was one of those who attended that session.
You look at, the Bears, are not a very good football program. The 49ers are, right? And the 49ers, so you look at the Rand Carthon and Adam Peters coming from San Francisco and not knowing enough about these guys, director of player personnel, assistant GMs, you do look at the organizations they're from and how those organizations are run, because you want guys that come from quality organizations that have a track record of winning, that have a culture of winning. And so that would excite me about the 49er guys, not to say that Ian Cunningham might not be, he might be a great general manager. He is assistant GM right now, but I do like the, reaching out to that branch of the 49ers with all the success that they've had.
It's a great point. And not having ever met him, he could walk in here right now and I wouldn't know who Ian Cunningham is. I will say this. This is only his first or second year with the Chicago Bears. He has worked primarily with the Ravens and the Eagles, and that's and the Ravens you think of Ozzie Newsome, who was one of the great general managers of our time in terms of roster building, and of course the Eagles, who won a Super Bowl back in 2017 and are the number 1 seed this year. So obviously he had a hand in that as well. I would agree. You look at the team that they came from, and you go, the Chicago Bears.
But Eagles and Ravens before that, sure.
I mean, there is a resume where you have to consider some of the other people that Ian Cunningham might have worked with.
The first question I ask these guys is, how are you going to get them? How are you going to, build this team? And with coaches, how are you going to get the most out of Kyler Murray? I've got a $200-something million investment in Kyler Murray. How am I going to get the most out of him? And with the GMs, you want to ask them, look, what are you going to do to change the culture? What are you going to do? We want to have draft picks that stay. Not that, I was reading about the Jets with Williams. They were talking about how they haven't extended a first round pick in a long, long time. Like, you want to be able to extend play. You want to hire, draft the right kid to the point where you like them so much you want to keep them. You got to have good drafts. What's your plan on building through free agency and the draft? And what do you think is the thing we need to do the most? I want to hear somebody say we got to build from the inside out. We got to have a strong offensive line, a strong defensive line. We're going to put all our resources into building a line that's going to protect Kyler Murray. To protect him and give him the best chance. We're going to build a defensive line. It's going to wreak havoc on quarterbacks and put pressure. Like, I want to hear that from a general manager.
Rand Carthon, you mentioned him from the 49ers. He also attended the NFL's accelerator program, so I don't want to just put Ian Cunningham in that. He's and I'm just telling you right now, I'm stealing this point off of Johnny Venerable off of Twitter, because he tweeted it out. He works with PHNX Sports, and it's an interesting thought. Rand Carthon, director of player personnel for the 49ers, I would have to imagine that would put you in the running for DeMeco Ryans if that's something you wanted to be in the running for.
Right.
Given their connection together with the 49ers. It's not necessarily given, but certainly you look at the roster building with the 49ers. Now, in some ways, they've done it differently, right? they've given up a lot of draft picks. They've sacrificed draft picks in order to get kind of established players.
But there's another way to look at that. Okay, go ahead, finish.
But they've also drafted very, very well. What was the way you were going to look at it?
Is that they've also gotten a lot of draft picks because a lot of their coaches have been hired. Robert Saleh was hired by the Jets. Martin Mayhew with Washington as a GM. Mike McDaniel got hired by the Dolphins. He was the offensive coordinator. So
point.
they have received, 5 third-round picks because of that program that you were talking about, because of the hiring. Because their defensive coordinator, Robert Saleh, got hired, because their ex-personnel executive, Martin Mayhew, got hired as the Washington GM, because Mike McDaniel's now the head coach in Miami. So you kind of look at that. Obviously, they're doing something right in San Francisco to have GMs and coaches get hired elsewhere. So I think that's a great place to look, is in San Francisco.
When we come back on the Burns Gambo show, we remind you first, you can text us your thoughts on the FanDuel text line. Text us at 620 right now. Say it would be a good day to text us your thoughts, because I imagine we'll read some of those on the air. We want to get as much input as we can. Michael Bidwill met with the media moments ago to address the current state of his football team. We'll go a little deeper into some of the things that stood out the most to us. We react, and you'll hear from Michael Bidwill and some cuts from him. That's next on the